Well, welcome everyone to the RTI Speed Tips with Bob and Chad, episode number 45. Uh, how's everything going in Bangor, Wisconsin, Chad?
Pretty awesome. We're in major SuperNationals prep here, getting everything ready to go, and looking forward to moving to Iowa for the week and being a part of that event and get to hang out with you all week, and should be a good time.
Yeah, that's going to be a nice deal for the customers. They can come by and they can stop at the AFCO booth and trailer, and they can stop at our trailer, and they can stop at your trailer, because we're all three right there in a row. And I think I'm going to talk my old buddy Ben into being on with us. We're planning on next week doing a live deal there at the Super Nationals like we did last year. Probably going to be a little, depending on the date or the time, we're looking at maybe going from 6 to 7 and be able to do that, what we did last year. So that'll be fun. We might not be able to take as many questions, but we'll be able to give people some highlights from Boone and that type of stuff. So that'll be pretty cool. So yeah, so our next live is going to be the 6th at 6 p.m. is kind of the plan. So you've been on vacation all week.
Yeah, we went, it must have been 8 days. So we went to Louisville, Kentucky for the first 2 nights, and then down to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and Gatlinburg, and the Smoky Mountains. You know, that trip to Bristol kind of ruined me. We had a house in the hills there for the Bristol race, and
Sure.
it was a good time, and it was beautiful. So I had to go back to Tennessee again. So it might be an every 6-month deal, maybe, because I guess we're going.
Very pretty. It's a pretty areas down there, man. I mean, it's pretty. Those mountains are very pretty.
We're spoiled right here. We're an hour from Wisconsin Dells, so I kind of grew up at the water park, amusement park type thing.
Sure.
My dad owned the racetrack in the Dells, and I take the boys there all the time. But that Pigeon Forge is like Wisconsin Dells times 16, so it's a good time. There's a lot of stuff to do, and we had a good time.
Well, that's good. Cool.
Got the new swag ready for
Oh,
Boone.
hey, awesome.
Yeah,
All ready for everybody at Boone for when they stop by and need a shirt.
I like debuting the new stuff at Boone. So we got I think we're up to 4 or 5 new parts for next week and the new swag, and we're excited to get out and see the people.
So yeah, there's going to be one of the new Weir's parts on the 75 car that's going to be in the booth there. That's going to be looking cool. Everybody will have to stop by and check that out. Check out that 2022 GRT with all those Weir's parts on it. And, we also got Jake McBirnie with us tonight. I called Jake at noon. I said, "What are you doing tonight?" And he made the mistake. He says, "Well, nothing." I'm like, "Well, I just got an idea for you. How about you come for a half an hour?" I thought it'd be kind of nice for the people to, kind of get his input. Granted, he's only 25 years old, but how many Super Nationals have you run?
This will be the 7th.
That's what I was thinking, that you had to be right in that 7th. So I mean, he's ran 7 of them. Won the sport mod 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago?
It's 3 years ago.
3 years ago. Ran second the year after that. So he's got a lot of experience. He doesn't have the true Boone experience because he gets to go home and sleep in his own bed every night. But he spent a week on the North Dakota tour, so he knows. He spent a week up there in Minnesota, so he knows that traveling aspect of it. But I thought it'd be kind of nice to just invite him over and kind of get a little bit of a racer's perspective of what the Super Nationals are like and what you go through. So tell us a little bit about some of your Super Nationals experiences.
The Super Nationals is a blast, the funnest race of the year. You get to go to the racetrack for a week, and especially for us people that live in Boone, it's nice. It's a 5-minute drive to the track, and you get to watch racing all week long. Best racing there is. So it's just it's fun. It's a good time, and we enjoy the Super Nationals. It's a big event. You always want to win it or be up front, and it's just a race that if you can win or run well, it's a huge accomplishment. So it brings everybody here, and you're here for a week. So it's a grind. There's a lot of work that goes into it, but it's totally worth it. Like I said, the racing's awesome all week long. The people are great. The race after the races is always fun. There's always activities going on. So it's a good time, just to get there, and it's just a different. There's just nothing else like it in racing, so it's always fun.
Well, that's the thing that, in fact, I had a guy up here today from Kansas City that came up and picked up some shocks, and they run NASCAR down there, NASCAR rules, which is basically similar to the IMCA rules. And I told him, I said, man, you just need to come up for a day. I said, this is just, I can't even explain it. This is just one of those deals where it's like back in the day when the first time I got to go to Daytona. I mean, you can watch that on TV, and you can't experience it unless you experience it. I mean, you just don't know what it's like. And so I think I convinced him into coming up for a day and see kind of what's going on. And so it'll be exciting. SuperNationals has a lot of emotions as a driver. Tell us about some of that stuff.
Yeah, you got to have some things go your way. First off, this year they're doing a split draw, I see, so you're guaranteed at least a good draw once during the week. So that's kind of cool. You're at least guaranteed a good shot right off the bat one of the nights. So that's awesome. As SuperNationals is a race, you got to have a couple things go your way and have a little luck on your side too. But you also got to have a fast car. So there's quite a few things that go into it, and the adversity at SuperNationals is huge. You can go from high to low real quick, and it's just how you bounce back and take care of business afterwards. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it, and it's just that's what makes the race so fun. It's hard, and there's nothing like it. So, if you win, you've done something.
And the year you won, of course, had its highs and lows because you qualified the first night, and then lo and behold, we had an illegal or a lightened steering box on the car, so you were disqualified. So then you came back, and luckily it didn't affect you because you came back and qualified the next night, which actually ended up, I think, putting you in a better starting spot in a sense for that race. And then you guys persevered and held your heads up high. And explain what that high and low was like.
Yeah, it's like you said, when you get done, when you qualify for the deal and you get into the tech tent, it's a huge relief. But you got to get through the tech tent. Those guys are serious in there, and they're looking for something. They are crawling all over your cars and checking stuff that you normally don't see checked all season. So it's a little nerve-wracking sometimes, because you have a loose end somewhere or something that you didn't see, or you just got to really pay attention to that stuff. After we got DQ'd that one year, that we just done a real good job the rest of the last 3 years of just checking things over before we go and making sure we don't have that issue. Just take a tape measure and go around the car and get to work and just make sure everything's right. And that just so happened that year we had a steering box on the car, and I didn't know that there was a difference, but Sweet makes a lightened steering box. It's like 2 or 3 pounds lighter, I think, or something. But we had it on the car, and Dave and the boys found it. I still think if we would have had that thing painted black, it wouldn't have been an issue. It was just a shiny new steering box. So they busted us on it, but we bounced back and got it in the show that started second row. And it just, like I said, had some things go our way. We got a late race restart, and it was able to pass for the lead and go on to win it. So it's a cool deal.
So what advice would you have for any newcomer that's coming to Boone this year? And we're talking about Boone because that's what's coming up here locally, but there's all kinds of specials out there, racetracks out east and out west and stuff that have their special end of the year deal. And so it's just as important, no matter whether you run IMCA or UMP or Lesotho, they all have their big shows. what advice would you give somebody that's kind of a newbie coming to a deal like this?
The biggest thing is just know your equipment, know your car, and be ready to go. It's there's a lot going on during the week. Sometimes you hurry up and wait. So you got to be ready to go, to be ready to race. Be focused, and like I said, there's just a lot that goes into it. Otherwise, you got to pay attention to track conditions, what's going on the racetrack. You could be in heat 10 in right before a farm session, or you could be on the racetrack right after a farm session there at Boone. And it's you just gotta be able to adjust the race car and survive and get there and be there for the qualifying features. So, but just any other race, even when you show up, you got to be ready. If you're not ready, you're not gonna run well. So you just got to have the mindset going into it that if you don't work hard, you're not gonna get the results. So you just gotta pay attention to what you're doing, and like I said, just know your equipment and your car before you show up, and you'll get results.
Well, and I think it's, and of course, people, maybe sometimes don't think that I like to have a lot of fun, but that's because I'm a little bit more on the serious side. So, my idea, of course, when a guy goes and shows up at one of these races, the party afterwards isn't my main focus. My main focus is getting to the party afterwards and what happens between now and then. And if you have the first night, can set the stage on how the rest of the week's going to go, depending on if that party lasts till 6 in the morning, or if it lasts till 3 in the morning, or how long it goes. And they've kind of axed a little of some of that excitement, because it used to be quite the deal where the stuff you'd see at Boone, you'd only see at Boone. It's like to say what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, it's kind of the same situation. What goes on in Boone stays in Boone. And everybody enjoys having a great time and stuff like that. So, it's just something that everybody's got to kind of think of. First question. Frank's got a question on linear valving and digressive valving to try to understand a shock better. Well, without actually having something to draw on, Garrett, could you give me like a piece of paper? There's a setup pad over there I can just draw on. Could you give me a little more? But anyway, linear is kind of self-explanatory, where it starts out soft and gets heavier as it goes. And digressive is where it starts out really stiff and then softens out, levels out. So like a digressive left rear shock would look like that. A digressive right front shock would have the same characteristic, only opposite. The linear shock, it just gets progressively stiffer as the shock goes, and it's just basically a linear line from 0 to however stiff your shock builder wants to make it. And the advantage to the linear, this is pretty typical. This is our typical left rear shock. This is pretty much exactly what the left rear is. And like I tell customers, the left rear kind of matches, the left rear and the right front go together. So you can kind of see where this is trying to hold the car down and then blows off earlier. This is trying to get the car to jump up and then blows off. Now our left front and our right rear, they kind of match too, because they're both pretty much linear. So that being said, they kind of work together. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it in a short story part of it. But it definitely makes the car get up on the left rear, keeps it down on the right front, and then the left front and the right rear are linear, where they're not trying to work, they're just working to be aggressive in nature, depending on how rough the racetrack would be, to hold stability in the car. B-Mod, fast, tacky, hooked up racetrack, cars tight. What's your recommendation? More than likely, if the car's tight and it's a fast type racetrack, you're hooked up too hard on the right rear. Car's getting on the right rear pretty hard. This is a situation where if it goes in and it's hooked up hard, that's a pretty good indication that you got too much panic bar in the car, you need more angle in the trailing arms on the right side, things like that to free it up. If it's hooked up hard when you get back on the throttle, that basically just says that the right front is not sticking as good as the left rear is wanting it to. So you either need to put a little bit bigger hold down on the right front, keep the car rotating around the right front. And that's the thing with when we were talking about this valving, that's the thing that we want this to do, is we want this to actually, on the initial part of it, we want it to hold it down and keep it held down so the car can rotate. Because the whole car, to work correctly, needs to rotate off the right front. And then that'll keep the car going in the direction that you want it to go. But more than likely, you just need to keep freeing the car up. When the racetrack's tacky and fast, you just got to run the car freer and like I said, just keep freeing it up. Brett, 4-link modified rear steer or shortening the left rear wheelbase, will that tighten or loosen the car? Shortening the left rear wheelbase will actually loosen the car. What that's doing is that's increasing your static steer, but it's also increasing your dynamic steer also. So, yeah, so anyway, sorry, I got distracted there for a minute. But anyway, back on the left rear wheelbase. Shortening the left rear will definitely make the car freer on throttle. It'll help it turn a little bit better getting in. If you want it to be tighter on throttle, I always lengthen the left rear wheelbase. Keep in mind, if you have, say, half an inch of static lead, in dynamic mode, you're still going to have 2.5 inches of steer in it. So all you're doing is you're trying to regulate the overall amount of steer that you run in a dynamic situation. Chad, yeah, there was, I really didn't agree with their decision on that situation. And I was wrong in that deal. I mean, the box, and it was actually a weird situation because it was actually boxed wrong from the manufacturer. And we got that car put together in June. It was a mad dash to get that thing put together. And I don't know, you had run at least 15 races with that car before, and I never even looked at it, never paid any attention to it. Well, then when they seen it in the tech there, and I was like, but a little bit more to the story, because it started out being a shock issue, and then it went to this, and it was just, it wasn't a good night for me.
I remember that night. Somebody came up to me and said, I finally got to see Bob Harris mad.
Yeah, I wasn't a happy camper on that whole deal. And the way it all worked out, it was just wasn't a good situation. So how I've cured that situation, I just don't go into the damn tech tent anymore. Because there's no reason for me to go in there and risk get my blood circulation going. Maybe it has to do that to get it circulating a little better from time to time, but I don't think so. Anyway, to stop by and check in, gotta keep working to get ready. See you all there. Thanks, Pat, for stopping by. Don't forget, Pat Fagan will have his fast shafts trailer there with all kinds of drive shaft parts and drive shafts and rear end gears, and he'll be on vendor row with us. We're kind of all a big bunch of buddies on vendor row. I see Skyrocket's going to have a chassis there this year, so that's pretty exciting. And there's a couple other new people on there that I hadn't seen, so that's I'm looking forward to it. That's the best part, in my opinion, of the SuperNationals. Sometimes is just hanging out with all the vendors and shooting the bull and telling stories and lies. I mean, telling stories and stuff like that. Todd, at the track, how often do you use wheel spacers and make adjustments and or adjustments significant or minor? Actually, Todd, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. I am a big believer in wheel spacers. It's just like our GRT cars. We should run 3 2-inch wheels and 1 3-inch wheel, with the 3-inch wheel being on the right rear. But instead, so that we have adjustability, and I like the idea of having all the same wheels. So when we sell a car with 3 1-inch spacers on it, and then 3-inch wheels on it, so that the customer can actually adjust the car with wheel spacers. You can make a car that's a little bit tight on corner entry, put a 1/2-inch wheel spacer on the car, and actually sometimes a 1/4-inch wheel spacer might just be enough. But a 1/2-inch wheel spacer, you use wheel spacers all the time, Mr. Jake.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, we flop wheel spacers off the right rear, on and off the right rear all the time to get the car to turn in better, or not turn in as good, depending on track conditions, of course, and just what the car needs. It's an easy adjustment to not change anything else significant.
And all it does is it just changes the way the rear tracks the front and vice versa. I very seldom ever play with wheel spacers on the front, but I play a lot with wheel spacers on the rear of the car. I think they're a big tuning device, because what you're doing is you're changing the 2 driving wheels that are driving the 2 steering wheels where they want to go. And so it makes a big difference. Right rear spring on a shock combo, say a 150 16-inch versus the 225 16-inch. Run a 3 compression, 3 rebound, or a 5 compression, 5 rebound. Light spring, light shock, or light spring, tighter shock. Wonder if there's an explanation for the right shock spring combination, slick versus grip. Explain what we can on that. Well, in my opinion, when you go with the spring is what your travel is, plus the spring is what carries the load in the car. The shock absorber is a timing device, so it basically allows that spring to either react faster or slower, depending on what you want the car to do. And what usually happens is when you have like a light spring that's compressed quite a bit, there's a lot of stored energy in that spring. So you'll end up having to have a little bit more rebound in the car or in that shock. Otherwise, it'll try to extend too quickly. And then once that gets up so fast, it can loosen the car up and make the car kind of erratic to drive. So as a rule of thumb, and just like the front ends, when we go real soft on springs, we tend to go a little bit stiffer on compression on shocks. And just like on Jake's car, we're 1 valve stiffer on his right front compression than what we were last year. Basically, and the difference was just between the 2 different cars and the light springs. So it makes a big difference. And you can tune the car so much with shock absorbers. Like I said, the shock absorber is a timing device, and it just really helps the car do what it needs to do in the fashion. Now, that being said, Joe in a 25 car and Jimmy in the 35 car might need 2 different shocks, because that driver might want more reaction, and Jimmy in the other car, he might actually want less reaction. So that's kind of where you got to work with your shock tuner, and have him work with you guys to see what your combination needs to be. And there's, and this is not an advertisement for BHE. I mean, there's a lot of great shock tuners out there, and that's the thing. They need to kind of know the driving style of what you want the car to do, and kind of help you tune it accordingly. Joey, hi guys. Hope all is well. Keep up the great products and great info. Nice to talk to you, dear. Nice to see you on here tonight, Joey. We appreciate you keeping track of my good old buddy, Mr. K. I realize it's a full-time job, and I'm glad you're the guy doing it, but I appreciate you doing it. Chris, looking forward to seeing you all there. And that's the thing that's neat about the SuperNationals is you get to talk to so many people, and you get to see so many people that you don't once a year. I mean, that's the only time you see these people, and so no doubt. I'm sure it's been asked, and I don't know the rules for IMCA modifieds, but what's the advantage to chaining the left front? Keep kicking ass in that hot rod jig. Well, when you chain down the left front, in fact, Jonathan, one of your competitors, in fact, I think a couple of your competitors have came in and bought our new left front chain limiter system. What it does is it keeps the car, you can actually run the car maybe a little bit tighter, and it keeps the car from loading the left or the right rear so hard. But if there's no, see, this is your two fronts, and this is your two rears. When this comes up, it goes to the right rear and pushes down on the right rear. If we can minimize some of that, it doesn't load the right rear so hard and doesn't take as much horsepower. But when it does try to come up and it can't go to the right rear, the force actually goes to the left rear and makes the car tighter up off the corner. So in my opinion, it's a big advantage. It's one of the adjustments. That's another adjustment that you do a lot, is changing the location of the left front shock to tune the car with that movement. Tell us what you think it does. What do you feel?
That's the biggest thing for me with that left front shock, chaining it up, or however you want to say it, is just it adds a lot of traction to the car center off when you pick up the gas, is what I feel like. I use it quite a bit, just depending on track condition. Normally if it's slick, we'll go to that. We'll chain it up a little bit, or compared to like a heavy racetrack, we'll let some out of it just so I don't have so much initial traction, so the car will turn. Because it does make the car really tight on the right rear. And if you get over there on the right rear too hard, then you're just eating power. With the crates we have, they can't take that.
Okay, Brian's got a question. This is a question for you, Jake. Jake, what's your thoughts on the new line pull bar compared to others you've used, and how often do you use the tuning of the pucks?
I really like that pull bar. It's the best one I've used so far. I know that Bobby and those guys have worked really hard at it and have spent a lot of time testing with it. I've had great luck with it. I changed my pucks and my pull bar in my Skyrocket car a little bit more than I do in my GRT. I don't really change much with it in the GRT, just because it's pretty good and I like the feel I have. But I do know that when you take the pucks out, when you increase the travel, it seems to tighten the car up on the brakes. So I mean, it's a good adjustment. I know that Bobby and a few other customers have had good success doing that. It's not something I do much of, but I do really like the piece. It works well.
Taylor, thanks for doing these episodes. Well, we appreciate that, Taylor. Thanks goes a long way with us in this industry, because it's one of those things that's what you like to hear, is people appreciating what you do. It has helped a lot. Recently got back into a car after 10 years. Sport mod gets into the corner all right. Mid corner, it has a push hard under throttle. Having to use the brakes to get the car to rotate. 11.2 inches of right front, inch and a half. I was going to say, how would you get 11 inches of travel? I'm sorry. Inch and a half of right front travel left. What would you do to fix that? I'd probably soften up that right front spring. Get the car over there on the right front, load that right front a little bit more. Depending on what your shock package is, you could try a little softer compression shock. The issue always seems to be a tacky racetrack. That's pretty common. I'd probably, one thing I would strongly consider is a little different right front shock, one for a tackier racetrack that just holds that car down on the right front a little bit more. And maybe taking a little bit of angle out of the left rear trailing arm. But the other thing that works really well is putting more angle in the right rear trailing arm. That helps the car rotate because it puts more steer in the car, helps the car turn in, getting in. And like Jake back with his sport mod, we've got numerous different holes on the right rear. They always run hole number 4 when the racetrack had some bite to it, and then when the racetrack got real slick, they would drop that down. So raising that right bar, actually that'd probably be my number 1 change that I would do first. That seems to go pretty well. Well, Jake, I promised to let you go after we were halfway done. You're welcome to stay, but you're welcome to leave if I know you got stuff to do. You got a SuperNationals car to get ready.
Yep. I'm gonna go ahead and go get some tire work going here and just get ready. Keep getting ready. Get home and take care of I got an 11-month-old at home, so sometimes that gets a little rowdy too. So just get back to that, I suppose. Thank you for having me, guys.
So is she walking yet?
Not yet. She'll stand up on her own and hold on to things, but she's not quite walking yet. We're getting there. It's getting ready to be crazy. So I think we give her another month or so, she's going to be flying around the house. So.
Yeah, that's always the fun time, man. When I just wish they'd walk, and then they walk, and I'm like, oh my God, how can we contain them?
Yeah. So anyway, well, thank you guys for having me, and I appreciate it, and hope to see you guys all at SuperNationals, and it's gonna be a good time.
All right, thank you,
Thanks.
Jake.
We'll see you, Chad.
See you later.
Okay, on the biscuit style pull bar, what would the effect be of worn out biscuits do to the car? Chad, that'd be a great question for you. You've worked with that biscuit bar for quite some time.
Usually when the biscuits wear out, they get stiffer and they travel less, so the bar is not going to be as forgiving, and it's going to be really stiff, so it's going to have max traction center, so you're essentially going to blow the tires off quicker. So that's generally what happens. They'll quit traveling, so that's when it's time to put fresh pucks in.
What brake master cylinder bore do you suggest on a stock car? I got 1 inch on the front, 7/8 on the rear to the car. Car is loose when entering the turn, when dragging the brake. Still loose with the front brake cranked into it. There's probably something more going on. I don't think that. I mean, normally we would run 1 inch in the front and 1 inch in the back. We used to always run the 7/8 to the back, but we've learned. Ben Baker kind of helped us on this, and we've found that running equal master cylinders, the rakes don't fade as much, and they don't seem to change as much as they do with unequal master cylinders. But when dragging the brake, you just got to make sure all your brakes are working fine, and make sure there's nothing else that's kind of dragging in there. It would be hard for me to pinpoint what's actually going on, but it would almost lead me to believe if you're all the way to the front brake and it's still free getting in, there's a chassis issue going on somewhere. You need to take a look at. How low should I run the left rear control arm on a sport mod? Seems I have 6.5 on the rear's bracket to 25 degrees. We actually run on the bottom, on the left rear, with the rear's brackets, we run it in that 6.5 inch hole. And then our cars, actually, we've got more holes. We have more holes on the left rear. Our static setup is 28 degrees. So that 25 degrees, that's good. What I've actually looked at, and this is something, for you to think about, when the car's up in dynamic mode, how much chain you have and how much degree you have there. I like to make sure that my trailing arm, I jack it up underneath the seat and I get it up against the chain. I like to make sure that my trailing arm doesn't go past the 45 degrees. We kind of like to see that dynamic 45 degrees seems to work really well. That's a good leverage point. If you go past the 45, I actually think it gets more, kind of can give you a little bit more of a jacking pogo stick effect, where it's not lifting the car like it should. But 25 degrees that's pretty good. The inside of the left rear rotor to the center of the left rear bird cage is 7.5 on a modified. Does Weir's have a bird cage brake floater combo that can be locked up together without having to change the location of the bird cage?
Let me measure that quick. Hold on.
Well, I want to thank Jake. I didn't get actually to tell him thanks while he was here, but I definitely want to thank him for coming over and sharing what his experiences have been at some of the big shows. Granted, he's the only guy he's only 25 years old, so he doesn't have a tremendous amount of years under his belt. But like he said, he's been doing that thing. So, this is his 7th year at the SuperNationals, so he's getting a lot of experience in a short period of time. So make sure that all of you come and say hello at the SuperNationals. We're in booth number 23. We'll be there. Somebody will be there. And kind of get everything put together there from the night before, and so I'll probably be there about 12:30 till 5:30 or so like that until the races actually get going. And once again, our next live is going to be September 6th at 6 o'clock, and the BHE office will be open 9 to 3. So if there is stuff that needs to be shipped for those of you guys that aren't coming to the SuperNationals, we can definitely get you taken care of. Rocky will be in the shop probably in the mornings. He's racing the SuperNationals, and of course, he's kind of coming off of a high of being the big winner at Deer Creek in the Harris Clash in the Sport Mod division. That was his biggest win of his career, so he's looking forward to the SuperNationals, and like Jake said, kind of things kind of click your way. He's got a fast race car, and he proved to us that he can win. So if everything goes our way, he'll be a contender. Go ahead, Chad.
Our standard narrow is 6 inches from the edge of the rotor to the center of the 4-link rod, but if we put a wide on there, we can get to 7.5 easy. I don't know what kind of car it is, but most modifieds are running the narrow package. Whatever the 7.5 number, depending on the chassis. I like to get everything out closer to the contact patch. I think the cars work better when you get it out there farther anyway, but we can accommodate that 7.5 if that's what you want to get to with a wide cage for sure. Or we can use the spacers in the narrow cage. I don't like to move it to 7.5 on a narrow setup because you get the trailing arm too close to the shock bracket, and then in hike it can hit the shock bracket. So if you're stuck on the 7.5 and want to be there, we can do that with a wide combo, and you can still clamp the brake to the suspension cage or run it as a brake floater. So give us a call tomorrow. Either me or Austin or Billy can get you dialed in.
Is Billy coming down to the SuperNationals any day?
He's not scheduled to. We got me and Austin and Steve and Landon, media guys coming. So
awesome.
Should be a good time. And we'll have a couple fill-ins there that help us locally probably. So
sure. Yeah, that's what, when I get ready to retire from this, I'm just going to go to work for you.
On the road?
Yeah, that's why I was talking about that motorhome. Anyway, is there a situation where a sport mod you can have too much left rear shock bar angle and have a lack of side bite because it's up on the left rear against the chain too hard? Yeah, I'm quite sure that's a possibility. You get too much. I don't know if I'd call it lack of side bite. I mean, when the left rear stops and if it gets up too much, it's all more of a timing thing. If it gets up there too fast, that could cause the side bite to have a problem. The angle, I don't know, is as much of an issue as the speed. I think could potentially be an issue. The guy might want to think about a little more rebound in that left rear shock, something to that effect. But normally, it could. I mean, like I said, if it gets up there too fast, gets up against the chain, and anytime when it gets against the chain, if it gets there hard, it's going to shock both rear tires, no matter how you look at it. It's going to do that. So it's very possible that could be. On a B mod, we're noticing some cars have the right front tire laid over a bunch with camber. What's the advantage? What does that do on a fairly banked racetrack? Well, I think it's more of a situation where we didn't used to run as much camber, but that's because we weren't getting so much left rear hike. Now we're getting these cars over on the right front so hard that if we didn't put more static camber in the car, when you go in and you get all that, because we're getting, as a rule of thumb, 4.5 inches of shock travel on the right front of a modified or a sport mod. And with that being said, with all that movement, we've got to put more static camber in there so that when it goes in a dynamic mode, we still have quite a bit of surface of the car or the right front tire. What would happen is if you didn't have enough camber and it gained too much camber or not enough camber, what's going to happen is it's going to roll to the sidewall of the tire and actually make the tire buckle, and the front end is going to push more. So we've found increasing that camber definitely helps. Be a little careful when you do increase the camber. Make sure that you run it through it's all shock travel, everything, because a lot of times the way these cars are built, they weren't built with that intent, and so they might get a little bit of clearance issues with the shock, and you dent that shock, and that's $150 repair. So make sure you do your homework before you just go to the racetrack and check it out. Do you guys have an opinion, shock spring behind instead of using a slider with the shock in front? Seems okay when it's slick, but I've been super tight when the racetrack's heavy, it's got traction. Is there something that you would change night to night to stick with one or change the other? Well, one thing about it, like I said, a lot of times I very seldom ever change anything on the left rear. I do a lot of changing, a lot of tuning on the right rear to get the car freer when the racetrack's got grip in it and just get more roll steer to the car. That seems to be pretty good. My opinion, if I had the option, I would run the shock in front of the housing and the spring behind. What that does is that actually helps the car with the shock in front. It actually creates traction when the car is starting to traction up before the spring really takes into effect. And if you actually run it through the motion, you'll see, but then it's also to the fact that it helps on the D cell too. With that shock in front, it can help keep the car a little bit tighter getting in. What does moving the pull bar up or down on the rear end do? Well, go ahead, Chad. I'll let you take that one.
Well, moving it up would give it more angle, so it'd be more instant traction. Moving it down would take angle away and give you more longevity traction, less instant traction. If you're talking about overall front and back, the higher you raise the pull bar in the car, the softer the pull bar should be, and the lower that is in the car, the stiffer the pull bar should be.
Well, 7:45, we've got 15 more minutes. Any other questions out there? You already showed us the new swag for SuperNationals, so that'll be good. I know we have some new sweatshirts. And I think we have some new t-shirts too, don't we? I hate to sound kind of dumb about that, but I I helped a lot with the Harris Clash t-shirts, but I haven't really helped out a lot with these, so I'm not as familiar with what we've got going on this year. If I lengthen my left rear chain on a 4-link car to give it more rear steer, do I need to drop the top bar as well? Car is extremely tight on entry. No, you really wouldn't need to drop the right. Wait a minute. No, you wouldn't want to drop the left rear. I think that actually is helping the car keep steering it. If the car is extremely tight on corner entry, I think you need to have more angle in your right lower bar. That will help the car get in, steers loose, helps the right rear kind of turn and rotate around the car. So that would be my suggestion. Your tightness is more probably related to the you're adding more steer and you're adding more angle, which is going to give you more traction. If you feel that the car's got too much traction on under power, you could drop that left bar down, and that would take a little of that traction out of it.
Looking forward to the week.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. We're quite sure you're doing the same thing as we are. We've got stuff stacked around here in the different places, and the boys were checking out stuff in the trailer today. And I kind of mentioned the fact that I didn't want fire drills on Friday because that's never my favorite thing. So if there's some piece of equipment that's not working in the trailer, we need to know about it tomorrow so that we have time to get stuff here. And so that looks pretty good. I know I talked to Austin, and that's kind of what today, you're Austin, and that's what he was actually talking about doing, was getting some of the stuff ready for the SuperNationals. And it's
I think he's still here working.
Is he?
Yeah.
I tell you what, it's a grueling event it's a grueling event for the racers. It's fun, but I mean it takes a lot of work. But the vendors, people a lot of times don't understand the fact that, you'll put 2 weeks, easily 2 weeks worth of work into the SuperNationals, because when you want to be there prepared, you want to make sure your customers get what they need. And and for you, you're 4 hours from home. We're pretty fortunate. We're only about 12 minutes from the SuperNationals in the Boone. So if we need to run back here during the day, we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, we had a big meeting this morning about all of our marketing stuff, and we made the tough decision. We're pulling out of PRI again, so a lot of people are pulling out again, and we're gonna focus more on the Saturday Night Racer. That's our end user, that's our customers. So we're looking at doing more trackside stuff and getting to the tracks more and seeing the people. So it sucks for the industry what's going on, with everything in the world today, but we just felt that it was the right thing to do, and a lot of companies like us are pulling out. So we're looking forward to Boone. We're going to focus hard on these live trackside events for our customers and see where that takes us.
Well, I think it's a good idea because, I mean, it's, you're at the racetrack, and they're at the racetrack, and they'll make time to come and see you. And that face-to-face thing, PRI is, and I'm not saying anything bad about it at all, but, like to come into your booth and want to talk to you, I'd wait an hour. I mean, it's just, it's just a situation where at least in your trailer, you don't have as big of a line. So that's pretty cool. New to all the 4-link stuff, Brett, glad it makes sense. I hope we helped you there. Where's the best location for the pull bar on the rear end, in front of center line or the behind center line? Well, we actually had this question a couple of weeks ago, and I think, Chad, you answered that really very well on what customers wanted. Yeah,
so, I mean, for the last how many years we've been in front, like 1 to 4 inches in front of the center line. Pull bars used to travel a lot more. They used to travel 2.5, 3 inches So you needed to have the pull bar in front, so when the axle wrapped, it didn't fall over center line, over cam. Nowadays, the pull bars, we're making them travel 1 to 1.25 on an IMCA car, so they're not traveling as much. So then that becomes a situation where you can put that pull bar behind center, make it longer, and get that more traction. So the farther that arm is in the car, the more traction the car is going to have, the more leverage it has to try and dig the tires on the racetrack. So, but you need to watch that you don't cam. So that's one of the things. But 90% of the cars are 1 to 4 inches in front.
Chris says, sport mod with a crate is good on a hammered down racetrack. On the slipped over racetrack, it's loose on hard throttle exit. What's the first adjustment that I would make to help that looseness on corner exit? I would put some lead in my car. I would make my left rear trailing arm longer. That's going to help the car come up off the corner a little straighter, because once again, when the car is rolled over on the right rear, you're going to have probably 2 inches of roll steer in that car. Well, if you can take a little of that out, that's what I tell customers all the time. If the car's coming up off the corner and the tail's jumping out, you either have too much stagger or you have too much trail in the car. We actually set our cars up with 3/8 inches of lead, and I adjust my right rear trailing arm up or down depending on how much steer I want in it. So in that situation, we would have 3/8 of an inch of lead in the car, and when the racetrack got slick, I'd drop my right trailing arm down, and that would give me more traction up off the corner. We just got one of your cars. We are located in Georgia. First time watching. How often do you do this live on Facebook? Well, we've been doing it every other Monday night. After the SuperNationals, we might take a little bit of a break. Just depends on. Haven't talked to Chad about it, what we got going on. Sometimes what happens is we think we're busy in the summertime, but that stretch of September and first part of October, holy cow! Because you got the events now that are 2 days, 3 days, longer events, and so the week gets shorter, and it kind of just depends. So we'll have to see. But as of right now, we've been going every other week. On a stock car, right, if the spring is too soft, will it make loose going into the turn? I hear everyone running soft right front springs, but the more spring I add to my right front, the better it gets into the turn. Am I missing something, or is that just my chassis? Well, with a stock car in reality is it has characteristics of a 4-link car, because it's 4 links, 2 uppers and 2 lowers. However, it really relates kind of almost the lower links, the adjustments that you make actually kind of relate more to a 2-link sport mod car. So in answer to your question, without going all off on everything, I envision the fact that if you get what we do to free the car up is we soften the right front spring. If we want to tighten the car up on corner entry, a little stiffer spring for that high, those cars are high center of gravity, it might not be a bad idea. And it just depends too on the driver. It all depends on what he's comfortable with. Some guys don't like the way the car drives with that soft right front spring. So I don't think you're missing anything. I think you just got to give your car what it's telling you that it needs, and not worry about what the other guys are doing, because they might have a whole different setup. And the right front spring, it's just like even with this modified, then you've got a different combination on the left rear and a different combination on the right rear. So if they don't tell you what they're running on the rest of the corners, that can be deceiving, just running a softer right front spring.
Stay in your notebook and listen to your own rear end.
There you go. Is Bobby trying to retire in the shock business or go full-time Bassmaster Series? Well, after his weekend with the fishing thing, I don't know. I think I talked to him about as much about fishing today as I did about shocks, which so I really couldn't tell you. If it's up to me, he will definitely not retire in the shock business. He's got a long ways to go. And if anybody was to consider that retirement thing, he wouldn't be number one on the list. On a stock car, how much front stagger do you like to help the car turn on corner entry? And what's the maximum you would run? I've never liked running more. I know some guys run up as much as 2 inches. I've always tried to stay in that inch range. Whatever front stagger you put in the car, it kind of counteracts the rear stagger. So being said, if you've got 2 inches of front stagger and then you got 2.5 inches of rear stagger, in reality, the car only knows you've got a 1/2 inch of stagger in one aspect. So I don't run a lot of front stagger, but 1.5 inches would, I wouldn't be afraid of running 1.5 inches. Do you ever go below 0 on the right rear rod on a 3-link? The problem you would have, Kyle, is the car would get so tight in the middle of the corner, because when it goes in there and it steers, you're dragging that right rear. If you start at 0, that right rear is going to drop 2 inches, and all of a sudden now it's going to suck that rear end ahead all the time. Where at least if you're like 1 inch above, at least when you enter the corner, it goes back before it starts coming back ahead. So in my opinion, I would never go that low. I still like 3 to 4 degrees in that lower arm. Brett, what adjustments should I make to free a 4-link modified on corner entry? Well, once again, one of the big things that I work with is that lower trailing arm. That's a good thing to work on, freeing the car up and giving a little bit more steer in the car. That would be one avenue to go to. Hey Bob, when building a modified chassis, why not turn the front stubs to the right? Well, the problem that you run into when you turn the front stubs to the right, the cars were all left turn stuff. So in a sense, I like having that right front out there in front of that left front so that the car actually helps to rotate into the corner. Back in the day, we played with some of that stuff, and we experimented a little bit with one of those cars where we had the right front shortened, and it wasn't actually shortened it got shortened by accident, or should we say running into the wall. And after that right front was shortened back a little bit, that thing pushed like a dump truck. So we never really won it. Is Bo Partain going to win the SuperNationals this year? Well, I think so. And Christopher, I hope you're right. Bo's been running good. It just all depends on how everything goes. Everything's kind of got to roll your way, and Bo's got as good a chance as anybody has. We're all even before we get there, so it'll be good to see Bo come up. We're working on his new car right now, and we'll have that on vendor row. So stop by and look at it, Christopher. Brian, any thoughts on maximum left rear arm degree at full droop on a 4-link car, a metric 4-link car? Well, I would have to say probably about 20 degrees is probably going to be your maximum, 20 to 25 degrees, because the thing is you're not going straight forward, you're running it at an angle. So the more angle you have towed in, you're going to lose a little bit of angle with that. And if we went more than 20 degrees on it, you're probably going to start getting pretty free. We lose Chad. Anyway, that's my opinion. All right, last question, Brian. Any thoughts on maximum left rear arm angle on full droop on a 4-link car? Once again, the upper link. I answered that one already. Okay. All right. Well,
Technology.
technology. Thanks for what we. Yeah, our new weatherman. He's having a heck of a time with on Channel 8 down here. He keeps talking about this technology, and of course, I'm thinking to myself, and probably what he's getting paid, he needs to just learn how to run the dang thing. But anyway, that's just my opinion. I'm not saying that it was your fault there, Chad. Anyway, thanks for what you guys do. We appreciate it. We're going to sign off here. Once again, stop by and see us. Chad's in booth number 24. We're in booth number 23. Ben and Rex are going to be in booth number 22. I don't know what booth number Pat's at, but I think he's in booth number 26 probably, if I was to guess. So stop by and say hi to everybody, and we look forward to seeing all you guys. And thanks for being on the show. 45 nights. You guys are great. That's what we do it for. And we look forward to this every Monday or every other Monday.
Tons of fun.
Tons of fun. All right. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.